Now, did you know the average salesperson in North America earns $45,844 a year? It's pretty similar across the world. This is according to payscale.com at the time of this recording. So, let me ask you, did you get into sales so you could only average $45,000 a year? Of course you didn't. Now, again, it's according to payscale.com. At the time of this filming, could go up, could go down in the next year or two. So as you go through these next training modules, I want you to pay close attention because by learning the new model of selling, you're going to be able to exponentially boost your commissions very quickly if you pay attention to it. Now remember, according to behavioral science, we went over this earlier, there are 3 forms of communication in sales. They translate into traditional selling techniques, more like boiler room selling, error number 1, error 2, consultative selling, and error number 3, dialogue, when we ask what are called neuro-emotional persuasion questions, okay? Like I said, we're going to go over that in far greater detail as the course goes. Now, just note that behavioral science has proven that we are actually the most persuasive when we allow others to persuade themselves, but that is a skill that we're going to acquire, okay? Now, it's this third form of communication that I just mentioned, dialogue, that I built the new model of selling around, okay? Traditional selling, telling your story, posturing, acting tough, trying to persuade through long-winded presentations that just go in one ear out the other of your prospect, and telling your prospects that they should do business with you because you're the number one, you're the best at this, or you're the market leader, is the least persuasive way to sell. That's why you're going through a lot of numbers right now doing that. Most salespeople are taught to sell in the least effective way: presenting, telling, teaching, and persuading. So the sales training that you were forced to learn has actually been proven to be the least persuasive. It actually works against human behavior, and it triggers the very sales resistance in your prospect's mind that they're giving you that I know you hate, right? That never made any sense to me, okay? If you're like the salespeople we train every day in every industry, including yours, then you would probably tell me that those old school techniques that you've been taught that keep triggering sales resistance, which causes your prospects to emotionally shut down, which causes you to get objections at every turn of the corner, leaving you feel burned out, rejected, and a lower self-esteem. And really bad, not very much money in your bank account. You don't want to use that. So old school techniques like these, the assumptive sale. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about later on in the conversation or sales process when you take them through how you can be more assertive. I'm going to show you, there's a difference between being assertive and overly assumptive. Okay, I'm going to show you the difference, right? How about the ABCs of closing? Now, that doesn't mean you don't close, you don't get to the end and be like, well, if you're interested, let me know. That doesn't work either, right? But the mantra of just close, 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 trying to close them throughout the process triggers sales resistance because they know what you're trying to do. So we're going to show you how to close by getting them to close themselves. Just way easier to do. Makes you feel better, right? The Phil felt found theory. I know you feel, others have felt the same way. This is what they found. You know what I'm talking about. The trial close, the demonstration close, okay? Show them how enthusiastic you are about your product and solutions, and if you're enthusiastic, that somehow magically they're going to be excited about it. We all know that's not true, okay? Or accept rejection as a normal part of selling. Well, you can, but as you know, starts to wear on you, right? Because you're a human being, okay? And my favorite one, it's a numbers game. Get as many no's as you can so you can get that yes. Well, if you want to work your butt into the ground to get mostly no's and a few yeses, I guess you can, but you don't make that much money doing it that way. Plus, you work way harder than you have to. So if any of those sales techniques and mantras sound familiar to you, then you know what I'm talking about. The question is, do they actually work that well in the era that we're in? We call that the information age, okay? The information age prospect. And like you know, otherwise you wouldn't be watching right now, they don't work that well because they go against everything we know about human psychology. They work against human behavior. Most of what we think we understand about selling is constructed on a foundation of assumptions that have completely crumbled. Now, later on in this training course, we're going to explore how today's consumer is different from yesterday's. But for now, let's talk about the primary differences between the old model of selling and the new model of selling, or NEPQ. Now, to demonstrate, let's look at an example. And I want you to make a note of this, and I have nothing against this individual. I'm sure he was a great human being when he was alive. I'm just showing you the difference between traditional selling techniques and the new model of selling. Let's take a look at this author, this sales trainer, Joe Girard, okay, best-selling author and the Guinness World Record holder for the most cars sold in 1 year, all the way back in 1963. Now, he says in his book, How to Sell Anything to Anybody, that if prospects mention they've recently been on vacation somewhere, that he'll say he's been there too, because wherever that guy's been, I've been, even if I've never even heard of the place. A lot of people out there, maybe millions, have heard of me, and thousands have bought from me. They think they know a lot about me because I know a lot about them. If they say they've been to Yellowstone National Park, I'm going to say I've been there too. They think I've been to National Park, even if I haven't been. If they say they fished for salmon near Traverse City, Michigan, then I say that I've done that as well. They think I fished for salmon near Traverse City, Michigan. If they say they've got an aunt who lives near Selfridge Air Force Base, then I tell them I have an aunt that lives there too. They think I have an aunt who lives near Selfridge Air Force Base. So basically, what is he doing? He's lying to his prospects to try to make a sale. I want you to think about that for a second. Girard also describes in great length his favorite cold calling technique. It begins by choosing a random name in the phone book, which phone books don't even exist in our day. In this example, a woman answers the phone. Let's role play here. Girard says, "Hello, Miss Kowalski. This is Joe Girard at Marolis Chevrolet. I just wanted to let you know that the car you ordered is ready." Now, what does she say? "Oh, I'm afraid you have the wrong number. We haven't ordered a new car, sir." Girard says, "Are you sure?" She says, "Pretty sure. My husband would have told me that." Girard says, "Wait just a minute. Is this the home of Clarence J. Kowalski?" And she says, "No, my husband's name is Stephen Kowalski." Girard says, "Gee, Miss Kowalski, I'm very sorry to disturb you at this hour of the day. I'm sure you're very busy." Now, Girard doesn't just hang up the phone at this point. He keeps talking to her so he can bait the hook. Girard then says, "Miss Kowalski, you don't happen to be in the market for a new car, are you?" Now, if she knows they are, she'll probably say yes, but the typical answer will be, "No, I don't think so, but you can talk to my husband about it, or you'll have to ask my husband." Girard then says, "Oh, well, when can I reach him?" She says he's usually home after 6. Girard says, "Well, fine, Miss Kowalski. I'll call you back then if you're sure I won't be interrupting your supper." When 6 p.m. rolls around, you know what Girard is doing? He's calling and he's talking for Miss Kowalski. "Hi, is this Mr. Kowalski? This is Joe Girard at Marolis Chevrolet. I spoke to your wife this morning and she suggested I called you back. I was wondering if you're in the market for a new Chevrolet." And Mr. Kowalski says, "No, not just yet. I'm not." Girard says, "Well, when do you think you might start looking at a new car?" Mr. Kowalski says, "I guess I'll be needing one in maybe 6 to 8 months down the road." Girard says, "Fine, Mr. Kowalski. I'll be getting in touch with you then. And oh, by the way, what are you driving now?" Now, Girard then files his name along with the reminder in his calendar to call this guy 6 to 8 months later and moves on to the next name on his list. Now, do you feel using these type of sales techniques have caused consumers to not trust salespeople and to look at you in a negative way? Right? You know I'm right, right? And people are still teaching these type of methodologies today like it's 1963. The fact that these techniques are still being taught might seem to validate that this type of selling actually works. But there's one thing that you should probably know about Joe Girard, aka the world's greatest salesman. He hasn't actually sold a car since 1977. He quit the business almost 4 decades ago to teach others how to sell. Now, Girard's selling techniques might have worked in the mid-1970s, but today they have the whiff of old boxes forgotten in the attic. Think about it. In our day and time, Mr. Kowalski's at work. She's not at home anymore. Her household has caller ID to prevent salespeople from intruding on her family, and that's even if she has a home phone. 99% of the chance she probably doesn't. She probably just has a cell phone now. And if a salesperson did get through the family's defenses, she'd probably get rid of him quickly, maybe Google his name afterwards, and post to her Facebook friends and Instagram friends, or maybe Twitter, about the creepy call from the salesperson she got that night. But more broadly, Girard's worldview and selling tactics resemble one of those old movies in which a soldier stuck on a remote island continues fighting because he hasn't got word that the war is over. This stuff should only exist in a freaking time capsule. It's so outdated and no longer congruent with how today's consumer actually buys. Now, with the item model techniques, or maybe repackaged as consultative selling methods, the salesperson would come into the office or home of the potential customer, or maybe the phone as well, and try to find something they had in common. Okay, how are you doing today? Or, how's the weather down there? And now, since the pandemic, it might even be on a sales meeting on Zoom, talking about the weather, or who won the football game this week, or maybe they see a picture of the client fishing and they talk how they love to fish as well, or my daughter got married in that town as well. Basically a bunch of BS that really has nothing to do with why you're there. It's often mind-numbing, time-wasting chit-chat that in the prospect's brain feels completely inauthentic and fake. One question you always want to avoid is the standard, write this down, how are you doing today, or how's your day going question at the beginning of a sales call. Now I know you've all been taught how to say that and it feels comfortable for you, but why should you avoid that question? Well, it's because every salesperson that's ever tried to sell that same prospect something asks what typical question at the beginning of a conversation? How are you doing today? Or how's your day going? Your prospects know, you got to understand, your prospects know that you are genuinely not interested in how their damn day's going. Even if you are interested, which I'd be highly suspicious that you're interested in every single lead you've ever called how their day's going, let's be real, your prospect doesn't believe you are, okay? Because they hear it from everybody. So what happens when you use those type of standard sales questions on your prospects that they hear over and over from every salesperson, they start to emotionally shut down. So even when you ask them really good questions, they never really open up to you. Do you notice that? They stay surface level, they give you vague or general answers or 3 or 4 word answers. And if they don't open up and go below the surface, as you know, there's no sale to be made there, okay? And what happens is it lowers your status in the prospect's mind because they view you as just another salesperson who's trying to stuff your solution down their throat. Is that how you want to be viewed? Probably not if you want to make a lot more money in sales. Now, do you pick up on that when a salesperson's trying to sell you something and the first words out of their mouth is, how's your day going or how are you doing today? You probably do, right? So building rapport in most people's sales process is the first 10% of the time spent with the prospect. Then after that, the next 10% would be about identifying needs. That's the old model. Salesperson asks a few generic surface level questions like, can you tell me 2 to 3 problems that you're experiencing now and what you'd like to see happen to fix those? Or what's keeping you awake at night? Surface level. The prospect would then rattle off a few generic problems to the salesperson with simple logical answers. We call those surface level answers that are really just the surface of what's really going on. And then at that point, the salesperson does what? They go into their sales pitch or their presentation, talking about the features and benefits of what their product or service can do for them, how great their company is, and that they have the best this and best that, which we've already talked about. Doesn't every salesperson say that? Okay. As you can see, that's 50% of the old model of selling, just the presentation portion. Okay, then the last 30% of the sale, they go in for the close, and then what happens? The prospect throws out objections, and the salesperson tries to throw out a rebuttal, and then tries to loop around and close them again and again and again. At that point, the salesperson then starts to chase them and try to convince them to purchase. Does that sound familiar to you? Now, you want to keep doing it that way? It sounds really hard doing it that way. Ugh. Now let's look at the composition of time spent on each activity. Okay, remember that was 10% building trust in the old model, getting to know the prospect, 10% about identifying needs, asking a few surface level questions, 50% on the pitch of the presentation, 30% asking for the sale and trying to deal with objections. So as you can see here, only about 10% of the time is about building any trust. You see, the top 1% earning salespeople in your industry, in every industry, know that trust is king in sales. Pretty soon you're going to see what I'm talking about, and you're going to know the same when we show you how to do that. Because you're going to see the time spent on discovery and building trust is where the sale is made now, okay? And we're going to talk about the post-trust era, okay? It's not made in the presentation or with the closing techniques like, do you want the red one or the blue one? An option close is not when the prospect decides if they're going to buy or not, okay? It's in the discovery part of that conversation or sales process, whether you sell B2B or B2C. Now, the old model of selling does ask some questions, right? But 99% of salespeople don't ask the right questions and know when to ask them, like what the right time to ask them is, and especially with the right tone, okay? What questions need to show more empathy, like more concern, What questions need to show more skepticism, more challenging? What questions need to be more curious questions, okay? They just ask surface level questions which only get the superficial surface level answer from your potential customer. It's the salesperson against the customer mentality, like the salesperson against the prospect mentality. Adversarial. It's like you going to war every day against your prospects, trying to manipulate them and win them over to make the sale so you can make a commission. That's the traditional model. Presenting, closing, and combating objections primarily focuses on what? What does it focus on? It focuses on you and your own agenda. Now, I have to ask you a silly question. Who do you think your prospect cares about the most? You and your agenda of making the sale? Or do you feel they care more about themselves and what they're looking for? Think about it for a second. Do you like being pushed into buying something or talking to someone whose only agenda is to get what they want? Probably not. When a salesperson does that to you, what do you typically do? Well, I know what you do. You do one of these two things. Just Behavioral Science 101. Typically, if you're more of an A-type personality, you're going to get defensive. You throw out objections really quick and you try to get rid of them. Forcefully, like you're very aggressive and mean. If you're more of a passive personality, you withdraw from them. This sounds really good. Can you send me more information? I'm really interested. And then when they text and call and email, it's like the prospect goes into witness protection mode and you never hear from them again. Does that sound familiar to you? So have you ever considered that your prospects are doing the exact same thing to you because of how you were forced to learn how to sell to them? I want you to reflect on that and be real with yourself, because it's your responsibility to yourself, your career, and your future income to change that trajectory. And we're going to help you do that. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to dig in a bit deeper into what's happening out there in the world of sales and what old techniques you need to get rid of in order to go from where you are now to the income that you really want to be at, even if you're already doing good. Okay, so if you are average at sales, well, how do you get good? If you're good at sales, how do you get great? And if you're great at sales, how do you become a legend in sales? Are you with me? Okay, I'll see you in the next training.